Hello and welcome to CDO Magazine interview series. I'm Marc Johnson, CEO and co-founder at Team Central. And today I have the pleasure of talking with Matheus Riolfi, who's the CEO and co-founder at Tint. Matheus, it's nice to meet you and welcome to the interview series with CDO Magazine.
Hi, Mark. It's nice to meet you as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. Looking forward to the discussion and learning more about Tint and what's kind of driven your guys' success so far. So let's just kick off. And why don't you just tell me a little bit about your product, the types of customers that you serve, the industries that you might serve, and just give the audience a little bit of an introduction as to what Tint does.
Yeah, absolutely. So we help companies create their own embedded protection and insurance products, and then help them to create some of the intrinsic risks that they have, turn them into opportunities. So think about the last time you use an Airbnb or an Uber, you don't think about it, but those companies spend a lot of time and energy to make sure they are kind of insurance and protection products as part of their offering. So as a user, you get a great experience. So think about you are in Airbnb, the place catches fire, right? Today, Airbnb has an insurance or a protection product, they call it cover, that will pay for any damage that will happen. And as a user, you don't even have to think about it. You just book the place, enjoy the experience, and if something were to go wrong, you are covered. So we work with companies of different industries, particularly in the vacation rental space, shipping, kind of marketplaces more broadly, helping them create the same kind of sort of protections to help them accelerate their core business and also kind of improve their customer experience.
Gotcha. What are the particular types of customers that you generally interact with? Is it evolving tech like Airbnb, or is it more established consumer products? What are some of the types of customers that you guys are going after?
Yeah, our customers are typically innovators in their spaces. So they are pushing the boundaries, they are creating new things that inevitably create new risks that can be addressed by their customers. So for example, we work with a marketplace called Neighbor that you think about Airbnb for storage. So you can, rent part of your house or your garage for somebody else who needs space. So they're a customer of ours. Or we have another company called Sits in Cheaper, which is in the capacity transportation space, but also larger customers like Deal, which is one of the fastest growth SaaS companies in the world, a multi-billion-dollar company that kind of helps companies kind of manage contractors all over the world. So we're seeing different shapes, sizes, but they're typically tech-savvy innovators in their own spaces.
Interesting. What just out of curiosity, what's your background and what kind of led you into the insurance space?
Yeah, my background is definitely not insurance. And I like to say that everybody's insurance got into it by accident, and it wasn't different with me. So my background, I'm born and raised in Brazil. I came to the US to study, do my MBA at a Harvard Business School. And the reason why I came is that I wanted to come to the Silicon Valley and start global businesses from here. I think there's really no better place in the world to do that. And I used MBA as my entry door, came here, joined a startup called Turo, was one of the early employees, worked 80% of my time in insurance. So that's kind of the accident part. I had no idea that I would end up spending so much time in the insurance space, because obviously Turo was pushing the boundaries, was creating a whole new kind of insurance category to succeed. And my co-founder was there as well. We saw the opportunity because Turo was effectively creating an insurance product, but we saw how hard it was for the company to do it without help. It was very hard to build software for this. It was always very hard to get priorities from the product teams to work on something that was not directly part of their core business. And that was our inspiration to create Tint, which is the company that we wish existed when we were working at Turo.
Interesting. And so what are some of the things, you talked a little bit about what your motivation was for kind of doing this, but what are some of the things today that kind of inspire you or kind of drive that you and the team to kind of keep building and innovating in this space?
Yeah, the core motivation we have is that now insurance, in our point of view, should be a feature and not a product, right? So if
Yeah,
you think about insurance as a standalone product, it's not something consumers care about, the consumers like. Think about the insurance industry spends billions of dollars a year in advertisements and everywhere you go, naming stadiums, like whatnot, to try to create a brand awareness for a product that it's very important, but people don't care about it, right? So we believe that there's a better way, which is the embedded insurance way, where the insurance product become a feature of something bigger. Going back to the Airbnb example that we talked about, like imagine if Airbnb after you book a rental said like, okay, Mark, now you're on their own. Go on Google and search for renters insurance if you really want to protect yourself. Like it just doesn't work, right? It's much
yeah,
better than Airbnb already thought about it, already made part of the product. And as a user, if something go wrong, you're protected, but you don't have to care about it. And
yeah,
we think that like that's the biggest change, the biggest transformation that is happening in the insurance industry since it was created 300 years ago, because the model that the standalone insurance model is a model that is 300 years old and it hasn't really changed. And we believe what gets us very excited, very motivated, is like we think there is a better way. And
yeah.
this is the way where the brands become the ones who offer protection.
Interesting. That's really interesting. If you think about um, when did you guys start the journey? Just out of curiosity, how many years have you been at
We
this?
started 5 years ago.
Okay, all right. So about 5 years. What are some of the things over that 5 year period that have really kind of been the factors or catalysts for success? What are some of the things that have really kind of given you guys momentum?
For us, it was all about understanding our customers. So, as I mentioned, Jerome and I were at Turo before. So, we were with the time with the company, we deeply understood marketplaces and their needs, how they think, how they operate. And no, they were the early adopters of our solution. So, our first few customers were mostly marketplaces, companies that we probably had already met through a network. So, we were able to establish that in an early credibility and get like the first few companies over the hump to try something new. And so that was something that kind of really helped us in the at the beginning of the journey. Now we're at a stage where we're starting to go after customers in verticals that we don't have prior relationship. So then it's definitely now it's a different journey, but we believe that at this point in our company we already built some kind of reference customers. We built some knowledge, like we have a very strong team of experts that kind of can help us carry over to new verticals without necessarily our relationships.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about platforms and just how does the particular marketplace that you guys have started, how does it, you know, tell me about the buying and just what the customer experience might look like on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, no, for us, typically the engagements, like we say you are, just getting an example, a shipping marketplace. But suppose you
Yep.
connect people shipping things like cars, couches, motorcycles with carriers, with trucks that would do the shipping.
Yep.
Suppose that's the customer. So a typical engagement, like we go with them, we understand like know what they do, what is the risk, what they're shipping, how often, things like that. We give them an assessment of the risk and say, well, in order to create, let's say, a shipping protection here that will protect the shipper if, say, the car is damaged during the shipping, that will cost X. And then we agreed on like roughly how this is going to look like on their side. Because think about this shipping marketplace that I'm talking about here, they will be selling there. They will be offering that protection product to their customers. Like we are a
Got
B2B2C,
it. Yeah.
if you will. So we agree with them. So we agree roughly how this is going to look like. Obviously, we have best practices. We've done that multiple times. So we give them the playbook of how those things should work. They integrate the API. So our platform talks to their platform in real time behind the scenes. And it's typically a seamless integration. And after that, off they go, they launch. And our team kind of have monthly check-ins with them just to see if things are working as expected, the programs are performing as we would like, and that's it. So we get a process that is very complicated, which is the process of launching a new protection or insurance product and making it a very streamlined and kind of tech first.
Got it. That makes sense. So I'm with you now. So your guys' knowledge of marketplaces in general helped you because you weren't necessarily building a marketplace, but all of your customers are generally customers that have built their own marketplaces as well. So you provide a platform for those customers that are building their own marketplaces, correct?
Yeah, that's right. You're right. So our customers are typically marketplaces because think about before Tint, so those same marketplaces who are customers, they had to go talk with brokers, they have to talk with insurers. They just can't understand their business. Like they don't speak the same language. It's a very kind of hard and friction process, which was what I experienced when I was running international at Turo and being the one going to talk with those insurers and getting those relationships. So I think what Tint does in many ways, like we can speak both languages, so we can bridge this gap.
Is the maybe two parts to this question? Is the product mostly kind of headless in nature, where you're just selling the tech in the API, or is there also kind of a login or an app, so to speak, that the customer uses, or is it a combination of the two?
It's a combination of two. So we have our underlying infrastructure with the APIs where they connect, and they're like, in the insurance world, it's called the quote and process, where they call API, we display a price. It's okay, for this transaction is going to be $12 for the protection. Like we have all of this happening behind the scenes, but we also have an app where our customers can log in to see how this program is performing, to get a sense of what are see more details about each of the protection.
Probably configure settings and
configure settings, adjust claims, like things like that.
That makes sense. Who then ends up being in most of the, who is generally the buyer when you go into these customers? Is it somebody that is kind of on the product side or fairly technical, or who are you guys usually trying to make relationships with from a customer standpoint?
Yeah, typically the decision to use Tint is a C-level decision. So invariably it is so strategic to those companies, affecting some part of their core value proposition, that it's typically a C-level decision. But in terms of who is our kind of user, who can initiate this conversation, we're seeing that it changes. In some companies, the product team is in charge of, say, operations and risk. In other companies, they have a dedicated ops team. But I would say in either way, it ends up being a kind of C-level conversation.
Gotcha. That makes sense. What, if the flip side of, the biggest catalysts for your success, what are some of the things that have just been hard? What are the hurdles that you guys have had in terms of really kind of finding product market fit and growing the business, both technical as well as sales? Just what are some of the biggest challenges you guys have ever had to overcome, and how did you do that, quite honestly?
Yeah, so I mean, for us, it's the fact that the insurance ecosystem is complicated, right? It's complex and it's slow. So if you come from an agile background, when you can build fast, break things, launch things today, tomorrow, if it's working or not. Not our case, right? In our case, we probably count the feedback loop may take months, really. So that's one of the hard things, is actually, I would say, try to accelerate the industry while being part of it, by understanding that there's some pieces like compliance that cannot be accelerated in any way. So that has been, was a little bit of an adjustment. We came from pure software background, so we definitely had a view of agile of the world, of moving a lot fast. I think after 5 years, we recognize and appreciate that some things in insurance, in any regulated industry, but insurance specifically, cannot be accelerated, and we have to plan around that. So today we kind of redesign or readjust our product cycles, or how we think about getting input from customers versus building more like a vision that we have, and assuming that we won't be able to test everything. So it has definitely been a journey for us, but it has been very, very exciting for sure.
Yeah. When you and you don't have to name specific competitors, certainly, but when you think about competition, is your competition, a lot of the older, more established insurance companies that have existed for, long periods of time, or is it other organizations that are kind of trying to kind of provide these more embedded insurance type products? Like what does that landscape look like?
Yeah, so we definitely have both. We have some insurtechs that are trying to, innovators are coming on the space, and we have the traditional players. Like, frankly, I think our main competition today is the traditional players,
Yeah.
because they still have, billions and if not trillions of dollars of business that they get every year, in a kind of antiquated, not very efficient way. While if you look at our competitors, they are all roughly our size, meaning like it's still a small fraction of the industry, of the potential that embedded has. So yeah, I think we are all, the way I see, we are all kind of in the same boat, competing with more established.
Yeah. When you compete against those bigger brands, is it usually just the tech and the user experience that you guys can provide as compared to what helps you guys win in those circumstances?
Yeah, we're definitely, we are more like, as a tech savvy, a more tech enabled solution, but I think we're trying to approach the problem in a very different way. When we go to our customers, what we're selling is the infrastructure, is the software, so they can power their own product. So at the end of the day, like, they have ownership of what's the protection product. Say it's a shipping protection product, it is their branded shipping protection product, where they have control, and they see us almost like an infrastructure that helps with that. While, let's say, if you go to the traditional players, they are trying to sell their own products, right? They keep the IP, they keep the customer, and they're just trying to use those customers as a channel, pretty much. So we believe that is in the embedded, that is a critical shift in mindset, where the companies, they go from being just a small piece of the puzzle and a distributor to really the stars of the show, and with insights, with the data, with the customer relationships that are fundamental to create those products. So we build more with this mentality. And I think it sounds like a small change when you think about kind of high level, but when you think about what that means in terms of what exactly the product does, how it operates, it's very different.
Gotcha. Makes sense. It's a lot. I want to switch gears a little bit. If you think about the company that you've built and continue to build, and where you guys have, where you started, and it looks like there's been some recent Series A investment and starting to really kind of scale and take off. How's the company changed? Like, what are some things that you like and don't like about, do you miss parts of the old days? What are some of the just lessons learned and things about your company that you've seen evolve, both good and bad?
Yeah, I think if I think about our company, I think we are very like in line with what you would expect from any other venture-backed startup that kind of changes stages, right? So obviously, we were like 3 of us and 4 of us for a long time. So then when you have 4 people, it's like there's just no process, no structure, no anything. It's just like get together, do work, test, stay, and it's a kind of that excitement of like, you don't have anything, so there's no risk, there's no protecting, there's no consideration. Now at the stage we have about 45 people in our team, and we're growing fast. So we're definitely already starting to see and put some of the processes and planning and budgeting, like all those things that are very necessary when you are at that scale. So I think we've seen it all, like as you would expect from that transition. I mean, there's definitely kind of like, I like the fact now we have more people, more voices, more resources, and we can, have a much bigger impact than when we were 4 in a room trying to figure out. Now, from time to time, I do miss that feeling of like, it's just easier, faster, more fun when you are very trying to get from 0 to 1 than when you are on the 1 to 10 and 10 to 100
Yep.
pieces of journey. But I think it is important. Like, I personally think I'm also growing and evolving as this journey goes, and kind of enjoying each of those steps alongside the way.
That makes sense. Did you have a moment where, kind of the aha moment where you're like, this is going to work. This is going to be big. I better not screw this up. And tight. Did you, or was it a series of moments where you're like, whether it's just the market opportunity or the technology, whatever it was, that you really kind of felt very confident about the success of your business?
Yeah, well, I think we like, for us, there are a lot of things, right? So that they can explain that. But I think one of aha moment, there was a time when a few things aligned, which was like late 2020, which not coincidentally is when we got into Y Combinator. It was when, like, we finally realized that, like, instead of trying to work on a smaller piece of the infrastructure and try to optimize this kind of do this one thing well, we were better off doing the end-to-end solution. So think about like the analogy we like to use is a car, right? We used to sell a car engine. There was a very powerful engine, like, world class, but we're going to our customers and saying, here's the engine, it's great, but you have to build the rest of the car yourself. Go figure it out. I mean, some customers could, and they were excited about, but a lot of them were telling us, okay, I just don't know how to build the rest of the car. So we eventually, what I call the end-to-end solution, we started to give them the car. And by the way, the car has a powerful engine, which is great, but I give you the car, and then I will guide you, I will teach you how to drive, and then you're going to end up driving. To me, that was the aha moment when we started to pitch the kind of like the end-to-end embedded insurance platform, when it started to go from, I don't fully understand how an engine works, to, no, I understand how this end-to-end works well. And like, immediately with investors, with prospects. So there was a very clear moment. Obviously, a lot of things need to happen for us to get there. It was not that we woke up and like, but there was a click. It clicked around, let's say, late 2022. And then from there, we went to Y Combinator and raised our seed in early 2021, Series A at the end of the year. And kind of, obviously, they're kind of going from there.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd classify that as a pivot, but it's like, it almost seems like a pretty big expansion of your scope. Was that hard to take on in terms of now our MVP is going to take us 8 more months to, or was it not really that? Am I kind of maybe misinterpreting that a little bit?
It was definitely increasing scope, and it definitely felt at the time, like you're saying, which is like, wow, now it's going to take us another X months to, like, a long time to build it. And if you want to know, we're not done, right? I think the reality is that, our kind of benchmark is Lloyd's of London, which is a 300-year-old company that processes $50 billion in premiums every year. Like, we still have a few other building blocks that we need to put in place before we can say that our end-to-end is fully ready, right? Fully, or productized, if you will. Of course, today we have everything we need, but some of them we're gonna do manually. Some, like, in our goal is to, as a tech company, we're building everything in our products so that eventually we can scale a lot faster. So, it was definitely a little bit scary at the time, but it is the right approach. So in that case, you only have one choice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about it, it seems like you guys probably have a pretty broad range of different types of customers. When you go to do a customer implementation, what does that generally look like? Like, what are the general steps? How long does it take? What are the hardest pieces of it? What are some of the, what does that customer journey look like and start with for you guys?
Sure. So let's say when they sign the contract, they start an onboarding period. It takes on average 3 months, but from like our API can be integrated as fast as a week, we'll probably see. But I'd say 3 months is probably the time it takes for the customer to make, any operation changes they need to make, change their product, change in FAQs or things like that they need. And so it's about 3 months, and then we go with them through the process. They integrate the API, we run some tests, it goes live, and we monitor. But we are definitely also working to kind of find ways to streamline this process, right? Or make part of those things optional so that the customers that they want a more kind of low touch, fast implementation solution to get started, they can get it. We believe that most of the power and the magic happen when they're using the entire platform, entire solution. But we're kind of learning as we go, we can expanding our product scope so that we can kind of cater to different needs when it comes to integration.
Yeah, that makes sense. When you guys think about your product roadmap and decisions that you're making, and smaller bug fixes versus more strategic long-term features, talk me through about just how you guys think about that. What's the process you use in terms of making decisions around product and product features and investment in new things?
Yeah, we try to have a balance between what are more like short term. Obviously, we have even one of our values that we're customer first. So listening to our customers and acting on the feedback that we receive from them is top of mind for us, right? And it definitely has a very high priority. But we do try to balance this with some of those more, to your point, like my long-term bets that we have there, sometimes based on vision, sometimes based on our understanding of the market, to make sure that we're just not reactive to the features that people are using. Obviously, it's easier said than done, as you know, but I do think we kind of try to, especially protect a part of the roadmap that is going to go for these more short-term things, because otherwise you're never going to find time. Right? Like our customers have great ideas, they have needs, and we want to get them all out, but we definitely need to try to balance.
Yeah. Where is your product team or just team in general, mostly in Silicon Valley, or are you guys spread all over the world?
No, yeah, we're a remote team. We have folks in 8 different countries. The bulk of the team is in the US and in France, in Europe, but France more specifically. And not coincidentally, I'm here. My co-founder is French. He is in France. But we have folks in Brazil. We have folks in Nigeria and in different countries.
Wow. Interesting. Last couple questions. If you think about your journey through this thing and going through Y Combinator and coming to the US from Brazil, which is a extremely impressive story, by the way. I congratulate you on all those steps along the way. But what advice, if any, would you have for other entrepreneurs who are contemplating making some of the decisions that you made and were obviously really successful at?
Yeah, I think one of the main learnings is that you need grit. Just keep going, right? Like, I think, again, it's very easy and tempting and misleading, I would say, to look at this journey backwards and say, like, yeah, everything was very easy. And it's absolutely not the case, right? And even Tint, as I mentioned, we are 5 years old. We did have our fair share of times where things are not working and it was unclear how the future is going to look like. And I think it was something we did very well. And is the kind of just keep going, right? Just having grit, just try it again. And I thought personally that was that not important. That was too kind of fluffy and unstructured. But if you look at founders and if you look at founding teams, that tends to be one of the main reasons they explain success from failure, because doesn't matter how fancy they are today as founders, as companies are successful, they've been through a lot of hard times. And the difference is that they were able to keep going while many others just don't. So that would be number one advice.
I'd heard something recently. I can't remember the podcast that I heard this on, but it was recent. And it was around interviewing and building the team and trying to tease out different qualities, and persistence, grit, and I would lump into one thing, and then curiosity was the second thing, just being a lifelong learner. And but if you have those two things, you can do just about anything.
That's right.
I appreciate you hearing
agree with
that. Last thing, I'm curious. I do have some experience in the insurance space, not a lot, but I'd just be interested in any predictions or thoughts that you have for the future. You can share or not share things that you guys are targeting to do that might be big bets, or big thoughts. Just anything that you might be thinking about, or like I said, any type of prediction that you have for the industry you're in.
Yeah, our biggest prediction is that insurance is going to become a feature.
Yep.
I think that is a big one that changes everything. Changes who does what, how different parts are compensated. Changes how consumers interact. Like, it changes everything, and we believe that's going to be a big one. Like, I don't know and think that necessarily it's going to change the entire industry. Like, again, insurance, as you know, is a $2 trillion massive, complicated.
Yeah.
So I know even saying everything's going to change, but I would say that a significant portion of how people and companies consume insurance will change, because the reality is that
when you're thinking about that, Matheus, is it all forms, property and casualty, but health insurance and all forms? Is that areas that you guys would envision potentially playing in as well?
Yeah, we specialize in focusing property and casualty, so I know less about the other ones. But again, I wouldn't see why they couldn't change for other categories as well. And I think think about in the future, you can buy your car and it comes with insurance. You buy your home, comes with insurance. So getting into a plane, there's already travel insurance. Like today, travel is a good example where you can already buy a checkout. There are a few things, but like, even that, how is this going to evolve so that you don't even have to worry about it? It just comes with what you're doing and things like that. So nobody knows exactly how this is going to play out, but I think there is a somewhat consensus in the market that that's a huge wave that is coming, and it's going to change a lot how the industry operates.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you, Matheus. It was a lot of fun getting to know you and kind of hearing your path through Brazil to Harvard to Silicon Valley to Tint. So I want to thank you for joining me today and sharing a little bit about that. And I also want to kind of let the audience know to please visit cdomagazine.tech for additional interviews. So thank you, Matheus.
Thank you very much, Marc. It was a pleasure speaking with you.